And sometimes I want to regardless, and I'd like my son to be on it also because I'm thinking of her, right? And I don't want her to feel rejected by him, which I know is a fear of hers. How much do you push? If he's like, yeah, whatever, mom, or, is it wrong of me to say, come and just say hello? I don't know the answer to that. And I'm curious what you guys would do.
If I may.
Yeah, please, May.
What does he love to do? Does he love to play the video games when he's home?
Yeah.
Set up the call right there.
Yeah.
Hey, birth mom, you're going to watch video games. Why not let her enter his world?
Oh,
I love that.
That's a good idea.
I would gladly welcome her into the video game world.
She would experience that if she was parenting him.
That's a great idea.
I love that.
Set up pizza and bring him, a dinner or a lunch, or I would just follow him around with the phone and let him do his thing. I have a lot of video calls, and sometimes they're engaged, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's a 1 minute. Sometimes I have to go and I feel bad after 10 minutes.
Welcome to the Adoption Roadmap Podcast, your go-to guide through the beautiful, complex, and transformative journey of adoption. I'm Rebecca Gruenspan, a single mom through adoption consultant for over a decade, author of the Adoption Roadmap book, and your trusted guide. In each episode, we dive into real experiences, expert insights, and the raw, honest truths that you will need to navigate your journey. Whether you're just beginning, in the thick of it, or well past placement, you'll find support and community here to help you navigate this unique path with confidence and love. Adoption isn't all rainbows and butterflies. It is life-changing and worth every bit of effort. Let's learn, grow, and journey together on the Adoption Roadmap Podcast. Welcome to a very special edition of the Adoption Roadmap Podcast in honor of Mother's Day. Today, we're celebrating the incredible and diverse journeys of motherhood within the adoption community. Joining me are three amazing women who represent the many faces of motherhood. Allison Olson, an adoptee who has also embraced adoptive motherhood, offering a unique dual perspective on what it means to be a mom. Katy Mejia, a courageous birth mom and dedicated birth mom coach who has transformed her personal journey into a source of guidance and support for others. And Francine Apy, an adoptive mom of more than one child whose experience navigating the complexities of adoptive parenting inspires those around her. These remarkable women have all shared their stories with us before, and today, on Mother's Day, we're diving deeper into the offbeat, sometimes controversial truths about adoption and motherhood. We'll explore what it means to be a mom in all of its forms, how adoption has shaped your maternal identities, and the lessons we've all learned along the way. Get ready for a heartfelt, raw, and inspiring conversation as we celebrate the power of motherly love in every form. Let's get started. Welcome back, ladies. I'm so glad to have you. And I wanted to start with a question about, actually, it's going to all of you. We'll start with Francine. Mother's Day can evoke a range of emotions for those in the adoption community. What emotions does Mother's Day bring up for each of you, and has your perspective on it changed over the years? So, Francine, do you acknowledge or celebrate your children's birth moms on Mother's Day?
This is a great question, and it's funny because just last night before I went to bed, for some reason, I decided it just came to me that I wanted to write a blog on Mother's Day and what that means to me and how it could mean so many different things to so many different people, right? Mm-hmm. So as the blog went, I just really started out that I always paused during Mother's Day, especially during Mass, and just said an extra prayer for my son's birth mothers. Always, always, always. I mean, I pray for them all the time, but Mother's Day, I always felt it was a shared occasion that I shared with them. And as the years went on and I do communicate with two of them on a fairly regular basis, I often would message them and say, thank you for making me a mom.
I love that.
Yeah.
Allison, do you do anything to acknowledge your biological mom and or your daughter's birth mom on Mother's Day?
Yeah, so I'll start with since I have two sides of me, I'll start with the adoptee side. I would say for a lot of adoptees, Mother's Day is difficult. Sometimes it just depends. Sometimes Mother's Day is, sometimes their birthdays, sometimes both, sometimes neither. I would say, for me, it hasn't been. So I'm from a closed adoption, as most people know. So I do not have the luxury of having information around my birth mother. But for my daughter, because of that experience, we are extremely close to her mom, and even so much so that because I know that folks probably listening to the podcast know that I think it's, what is it, like the Saturday before Mother's Day is birth Mother's Day, right? We don't even do that. Like, she is her mother. So it's like she gets the full right of Mother's Day. So I send her a card. I send her mother a card, so the birth grandma, to celebrate them. And we try to call her and have a video chat. And it's very important to us to celebrate her, right? And everything that she means to our family, to all of us. And just to have that connection and celebration.
Allison, even though you're from a closed adoption, as I imagine a lot of adoptees are, right? Everybody has kind of a different experience. Is it a time that it you naturally think about your own adoption? Like, does Mother's Day trigger just your thinking about it?
Definitely. Yeah. Adoptees tend to, on Mother's Day, on their birthday, because the birthday tends to be the day that they lost that connection. So both of those tend to be a bit more sensitive. I've even known some adoptees where Father's Day can be impactful as well. We think about it every day. So I want to put that out there that people may not realize. We think about it every day. We think about it as we're filling out medical forms at the hospital. We think about, it is constantly, we are reminded. When people even say something like, oh, you know what, you look like someone I know. And back in my mind, I'm thinking, I might be related to them, So it's an everyday thing. And Mother's Day does bring up those feelings. There are, again, I'm going to speak more in generalities because everybody has different experiences, but things, are they thinking of me today? Are they thinking of me? And especially if you don't know if you have any siblings, if that they raised, like in my particular case, both of us were adopted out. So, is she even celebrated at all on Mother's Day? Okay. Or is she just alone? And so those are the things that adoptees think. But Mother's Day, if you know an adoptee, I would say definitely check in on them on Mother's Day.
Okay. Katy, are you acknowledged by your twins' parents on Mother's Day?
I did not know about birth Mother's Day until I became a birth mother. So, the day before Mother's Day is birth Mother's Day, and I do get together with other birth moms. And I think both days, as, Allison and Francine, I think had said, or maybe it was Allison, both days I'm a mother apart from being a birth mother. So both are celebrated. And throughout the year, there are many times that Jess, my twins' adoptive mom, will even post things like, I'm thankful that I was chosen to be their mom. And she'll mention me. So it's not just that one day. Every day I know I'm a birth mother. Anytime anybody asks me how many children I have, you know, it's a constant reminder that two of my children are being raised by another woman who's wonderful.
Yeah. How has your perspective about Mother's Day changed since entering into this adoption triad?
For me, every day is Mother's Day. Like, I love being a mom. I almost feel awkward sometimes on Mother's Day, like that, you know, you're giving us more attention. I think it's maybe more to honor Jess, that she really wanted to be a mom as an adoptive mom. Like, she longed to get pregnant. It was very hard for her to go through infertility, and she still mourns that to this day. So for me, it's exciting that another woman gets to celebrate to celebrate Mother's Day. I don't really have a negative connotation to it. I'm excited to share that day with another woman who really is rocking motherhood.
Do you ever think to yourself on Mother's Day in particular that you gifted the gift of motherhood to somebody? Or does that
Absolutely.
is that a trigger?
I would say there's times I'm mourn the loss of mothering, and I don't know if it's specifically on Mother's Day. I think probably about my own mother, and is she okay that I made the decision to gift motherhood?
That's interesting. Okay, great. I love it. And I will chime in as a single mom. My son is now 13, so he's getting a little older, but Mother's Day is pretty lonely for me because I usually don't get acknowledged. I have to tell him like 150 times, tomorrow is Mother's Day. That means you have to be nice to me. You have to like do things, write me a card, make me a picture, something. Like, be on your best behavior, please. So every once in a while, somebody else in my family will remind him, hey, let's do something nice for your mom on Mother's Day. But sometimes it's lonely because everybody else in my family is celebrating with their families. And, you know, he's just a boy. Francine or Allison, have your perspectives on moms or motherhood or Mother's Day changed since you became moms through adoption or just enter in this adoption world? Before we go on, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go away. We still have so much to talk about. Hey there, Adoption Roadmap fam. Are you ready to take the next step on your journey to parenthood? If so, head over to our website and take our quiz. It's called, Are You Ready to Adopt? It's not just about testing your knowledge. It's about making sure you're emotionally and practically prepared for the beautiful, complex journey of adoption. Let's make your dream of parenthood a reality. Go to rgadoptionconsulting.com and take the Are You Ready to Adopt quiz today. That's rgadoptionconsulting.com. The quiz is free, and it will let you know where you are in the process and if you're ready to jump into your adoption journey. Francine or Allison, have your perspectives on moms or motherhood or Mother's Day changed since you became moms through adoption or just enter in this adoption world?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm so emotional over here. Usually I'm emotional like in the morning, but I'm like, so this is a really beautiful conversation. And I hope it gets to all the ears that need to hear that this is what adoption can be, you know, having open and honest conversations. And we all have such different experiences. So thank you, Rebecca, really, for bringing us together like this, because this is really one of my biggest missions is, can we just make this a conversation that all sides are heard and all stories are heard, just like in anyone else's lives, even if you don't have adoption in your story, we all come from this different place. So thank you. So absolutely. I mean, I can't remember a time in my life that I didn't want to be a mom. So for me, knowing that, and I always knew when my husband and I got married, we had adoption in our heart even before I knew of my infertility. So it not being a mom was just not an option. So for me, it's this day of gratitude, right? The breakfast in bed and the cards, and that's all cute. And, feeling like as they've gotten older, that they're thoughtful and they're thinking of me. So your son will get there and you just get this card, not this elaborate gift, but this beautiful heartfelt card. And, you can't describe the just the joy, right? That brings. So it's a day of gratitude for me, and a day that I really reflect a lot on my son's birth moms and their choice to choose my husband and I.
I love that. Katy, you're a birth mom coach, and you said you get together with some birth moms on Birth Moms Day or Birth Mother's Day. What are your thoughts on Birth Mother's Day? I always get confused on that day of whether or not I should acknowledge my son's birth mom on Birth Mom's Day or just Mother's Day, which is what I tend to do. But I never quite know which one I should do more. And I once asked her and she had no clue either. She's like, I don't know. I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Thanks for thinking of me whenever, right?
Yeah, right, whenever. Yeah. But what's the general feeling as far as you're concerned in the birth moms that you hang out with?
When I learned that it existed, I felt honored. I felt like, wow, there was an actual day that set us apart. And of course, Mother's Day too. I think being acknowledged on both days, and now my twins are older, so they could text me or call me on Mother's Day or Birth Mother's Day. And now that they acknowledge me on both days, it's beautiful. Yeah. My older two probably don't really think about Birth Mother's Day unless I remind them that, I'm getting together with some of the other ladies. Mm-hmm. I think just not being forgotten. Yeah. Whatever day of the year that is, especially Mother's Day, if that birth mother does not have any other children, it would be especially important to remember that person, I think, on either or both days. Like, what does it cost to send a text or call or, on both days? Is it really that hard for us to do, to say, it doesn't matter, both days, you can have them both?
I love that. Just don't forget us. No matter what, we don't care what day it's on, but make it be both days. Yeah. We don't care which day, but both is best.
Right. I mean, even if you could do a visit on or around, I would say holidays in general are tough for anyone, I think, in the adoption world. You think about Christmas, all those days when families get together, like you were saying, Becca, like I'm a single mom too. And I don't know, my kids were and are still pretty good at like those little details. I don't know if I egged them on when they were little or they just came out with it. I don't know if because I have a daughter, if that made things different if it had just been a son. But Becca, you're not forgotten. And we love all that you're doing for all parents, people that desire to be parents as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Allison, I know that, you come to adoption from two different angles and I think you once told me that your more personal story is saved for other adoptees, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you can answer this however you want in general, just from what you know or however. But do most adoptees that and obviously you can't speak for everybody, but struggle? I know you said different triggers. There's different triggers, but struggle with Mother's Day while they were growing up, not as an adult, but as a kid growing up, whether you were in an open, whether you were in a closed, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, whether open or closed. It's a very different type of relationship. Or with your daughter, do you sense any struggles, or do you talk about certain things on Mother's Day with her that help her process both sides and that she doesn't have to choose?
Yeah, excellent question. For adoptees, I would say, it's probably different as children than as adults. And then it depends as adults where we're at in our journey, right? Of coming out of the fog, etc. So yeah, I can only speak from a closed adoption standpoint. But I have seen posts kind of already on social media. There's someone that I follow that actually did grow up with an open adoption. You know, it's like we're now finally so far out that we do have adults that can talk about experiences growing up through an open adoption. And I will say what he has said is that he would have times where he, knowing the family, it's like you're knowing what you're missing out on too. So then it was sad to be like, I'm happy to be here, but I'm also sad I'm not there, you know, kind of a thing. In my situation, it was more of, I'm just going to quote Angela Tucker's, you know, You Should Be Grateful book, The Ghost Kingdom. So it's like, it's just all these unknowns in a closed adoption. So in mine, you know, as a child, it was, you know, pretending to fill in the gaps, fantasizing and pretending to fill in the gaps, right? And so Mother's Day could bring feelings of, I wonder where she is. I wonder if she's thinking about me. Does she remember me? I mean, all of those kind of things.
Yeah.
Like that, I would say that's more for closed adoption. As you get older, as an adoptee, as you get older, if there is no relationship, it is a question of, are they still alive? What are they doing? There's always the question of, are they thinking of me, even if you know them? And so I would say those are the common things for adoptees. With all of that history and background, then going into thinking about, you know, our daughter, right? Our being birth moms, my husband and I's. I always try to think about all of the feelings that could happen, right? And we always like to do, you know, video chats and stuff around what she's already got planned for the day, right? Because we're just a part of everything that's happening in her world. And so, and then, you know, kind of if events and things you have planned, especially with young children, don't always go as you intend. And then you add in extra emotion, right? And they don't even know why they're kind of like behaving the way they are. But so sometimes like let's all stay in the camera view for a video could be difficult for for a toddler, right? Especially with big emotions. And then it's, you know, then it's me having guilt, feeling like, oh my gosh, she set aside this time and she doesn't even want to like be on camera or have this conversation. And then later she's going to miss that time and I'm going to have to walk through it with her and stuff. So it's kind of, you know, I would say like setting a low bar, setting a plan B, plan C, you know, if this video call doesn't go well, can do it in the afternoon too. We could do it next weekend. We could, you know, we can figure it out. But just being prepared for all of the emotions that come with it. We openly talk all the time that she has two families, all the time. And we did have an incident recently at daycare where they're talking about eye color and like, I don't know why they're talking about this for like such young children, but the science behind it, right? Like you can only have blue eyes if certain parents have blue eyes, you know, the certain chain comes down with the blue eyes. And so she came home and she has these beautiful, bright blue eyes. And she's like, she was crying and she said, I have blue eyes and you and daddy don't have blue eyes. And I said, that is because your birth family has blue eyes. And I said, come sit in my lap. And I got on my phone and I scrolled through at least 3 family members that have big blue eyes.
Yeah.
And we talked through who they were. We talked about, wow, don't you look so much like them? Oh, their blue's a little different than your blue, but that one, that's your shade of blue. And so that's the kind of stuff we try to do on a more regular basis so that when Mother's Day comes, it's more of, you have 2 moms. And then the one thing that I try to do is make sure that we like do some things in advance so we can send a package so that they can have it. You know, she can, I say they because it's birth mom and birth grandma, can have it before Mother's Day to be able to enjoy, you know, artwork and pictures and all that kind of stuff.
I love that. Francine, as a mom of multiple adopted children, do you approach Mother's Day any differently with each of your children? Because I know everybody has different unique experiences and different relationship with their birth families. What does Mother's Day look like in your family?
You know, the three of my boys have very different stories. And one does not have any connection with birth family. It's hard.
Yeah. What's coming up for you?
With your kids, even regardless of adoption, right? You want the same for all of them. And when that is something that isn't an option or even an interest right now on either party, there's not a lot you can do. And so for me, I hold that space for them because he's completely at peace with it. And I just hold the door open for him and the window open for him, that if there was ever a time that there was any interest on his part, and I've told my kids this from when they were itty bitty, I want to be by your side and do it with you, you know, or if you want to do it on your own, he's a full grown young adult, you know, but I wanted them to know that it was something that I just support, and the curiosity is just so normal. And whether or not there's an interest on their end or not, we have to respect the place that they're in. And right, wrong, or otherwise, the way I always explained it to my children is their choice to choose adoption had nothing to do with you personally. Had nothing to do with you, right? Yeah. They were in a situation and they made the choice of life, and I'll be forever grateful for them in that situation. And we could never imagine what they exactly were going through needing to make that decision, but we can speculate that it was not an easy space. And so I've always encouraged actually them all to pray for their birth moms and to come from a place of truly believing that they did the best that they could in the situation, and however they behave at then or in the future, quite honestly, has nothing to do with them, because they don't know, you know, my sons, you know, they don't know them. So in order to really not like someone, or, you know, it's the place that they're in. They're not capable of loving beyond their little world at that point, whatever stage it's in. And so I always just wanted them to know that it has nothing to do with them, and that a lot of things they don't have control over. So I don't know why I just got so emotional, because I guess it's still just really there. So I think a lot about that on Mother's Day. And at the end of the day, you know, my kids are just that much older that open adoption was not as prevalent, obviously, as it is now and in recent years. But I did do for all three of my children pictures and letters through the attorney twice a year, Christmas and birthday, equally for all three of them. And all three birth mothers knew that they could go to the attorney at any time and pick up those letters. And they had addresses. The attorney had addresses and would forward them on. And my kids knew all these things, right? So they knew that there was a curiosity there and an interest in them. So my heart was with my sons as much as it was with their birth moms, because they're so intertwined in the experience of adoption. So,
are your tears yours, or are they your children's? Or is it both? Do you know what I mean?
I think they're mine. I mean, I still really hold that space, even though they're young adults. I hold that space that I don't want them to hurt in any way, you know, and I don't want them to ever feel that, that their experience of their birth mothers choosing adoption and choosing us as their family was not a mistake, right? And that they are exactly where they were intended to be. And I believe they believe that in their core. I do in all my heart. I do believe my children believe that they're exactly where they need to be. But you still never want your kids to hurt in any way. I want to be able to answer every question and have a solution. I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
And that's a huge piece. I mean, my faith has always been my center, always, for as long as I can remember. And that's why I've tried to ground them in some level of faith, because there are just some things we do not have answers to. And the only thing that gets me through is that there is a bigger plan, and we may not understand it always. We may not like it. We may not agree with it, but it helps us to accept where we're at and move through. And that's one thing that I just always want them to know, that feel the feels, feel stuck, feel frustrated, but know there's always an option to move to a better place and move through something.
I love that. And I'm sure we can all appreciate the words that Francine are speaking, because as we're all moms, right? In maybe in different forms. We all want to protect our children. We all want what's best for our children. We all want them to be loved in a way that we know in our hearts is best for them. And yet sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. And I asked you if those were your tears or your kids' tears, because, I get that. And sometimes I feel like, do I care about this relationship more than he does? And maybe at the moment I do. Maybe it only feels like I do, but he really does and isn't showing it. Who knows? Who really knows? But these are all layers of things that we grapple with. Katy, what is one piece of advice you would offer to someone, and I don't know, maybe there's more, who is thinking of placing their child for adoption?
Before we go on, I'm going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We have so much more to cover.
Shopping for the right hair and skincare products can be tough, especially for multicultural or transracial families. That's exactly why Kate Shanahan created Sweet Peachtree Marketplace. When Kate and her husband adopted their daughter, she realized that caring for her melanin-rich skin and beautiful curls was essential to raising a confident girl. And as a cancer survivor herself, chemical-free ingredients were a must. She wanted one place with safe, natural products for her whole family, plus education and resources for families like hers. Now you can find it all at Sweet Peachtree Marketplace. Just visit sweetpeachtree.com, and because you're a listener of the Adoption Roadmap podcast, if you use code ROADMAP10, you'll get 10% off your first order. Sweetpeachtree.com with the code ROADMAP10 for 10% off your first order. Sweet Peachtree, celebrating every curl, every shade, every family. What is one piece of advice you would offer to someone, and I don't know, maybe there's more, who is thinking of placing their child for adoption?
Wow. There's definitely after you sign, there's a period where you can revoke that or attempt to, right? But it doesn't usually happen. So I think it's the best advice I was given by Lori Carino Reynolds. She's an adoption counselor here in New York. Is she said, take 10 days and imagine yourself parenting, and then take 10 days and imagine yourself as a birth mother, placing. So that for those 10 days, you're not double-minded, because when you're making an adoption plan or considering an adoption plan, you might be constantly double thinking yourself, throughout. Should I parent? Some people even consider abortion, and then, gifting parenting. I don't know. It's a personal decision that I try not to advise anyway, because I never want to be the one that helped anyone make this decision. It is heartbreaking. It is something you will live with the rest of your life. It's an effect that you're bringing upon even your extended family. I mean, I had family members that won't even talk to me anymore because I became a birth mom, and not because they hate that I became a birth mom, but it evokes some sort of feelings in them, or they didn't understand adoption, or I don't even know if I can express what they feel, because they themselves may not have come to terms with it to fully explain it to me. I think Francine said it as she was saying that these women made the best decision they felt for themselves and you as their child in the moment. So there's going to be loss. Expect it. Like, my tears when Fran was sharing were for adoptees. Like, I do what I do for adoptees so that when they reunite with their birth parents, that they don't get rejected again. Because they never really were rejected. Like Fran said, they didn't know you. They couldn't not love you. But to feel that you were not wanted, it's not the truth, but we feel that. And I think adoptees feel not wanted again. I would never want that again and again and again. And they sometimes feel it the rest of their lives. So my mission is to help birth mothers in particular, birth parents, birth families, to heal so much, so that when they do have those encounters, maybe those, video chats or whatever they're going to be, that they would be one step closer to healing. So it does not hurt anyone, because we know there's trauma here, right? And that's why we openly talk about this, to reduce that trauma.
I have a question for you guys. Speaking of video calls, because we always, I should say, I always try to initiate that too on Mother's Day in particular, a call or a video chat. And sometimes I want to regardless, and I'd like my son to be on it also because I'm thinking of her, right? And I don't want her to feel rejected by him, which I know is a fear of hers. How much do you push? If he's like, yeah, whatever, Mom, or, is it wrong of me to say, come and just say hello? I don't know the answer to that. And I'm curious what you guys would do.
If I may.
Yeah, please, May.
What does he love to do? Does he love to play video games when he's home?
Yeah.
Set up the call right there.
Yeah.
Hey, birth mom, you're going to watch video games. Why not let her enter his world?
Oh,
I love that.
That's a good idea.
I would gladly welcome her into the video game world.
She would experience that if she was parenting him.
That's a great idea.
I love that.
Set up pizza and bring him, it was a dinner or a lunch, or I would just follow him around with the phone and let him do his thing. I have a lot of video calls, and sometimes they're engaged, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's a 1 minute. Sometimes like I have to go and I feel bad after 10 minutes. It's very
kind of
normal.
If I can just jump in, it's kind of like I always talk so much about adoption. We're going to go through all the same things in our story, whether you have adoption in your story or not. But if you have adoption, there's that one extra lens, right? That one extra lens you have to look through, which is adoption. But it's no different as like us saying, like I would say to my kids, get on the phone with grandma.
Yeah.
Lucia's on the phone. Nana's on the get on the phone with Nana. Like sometimes, and maybe I'm a little bit older than I know than all of you, but sometimes I do go back to a little bit of old school because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. It's respectful. It doesn't take much out. It's like writing thank you notes. I made my kids write thank you notes until now they're 18, 20, and 23. I don't know if they're writing thank you notes.
No, they're not.
They might be texting thank you. I said, you better be at least texting thank you or calling. But there is an element of like, sometimes with all due respect to adoption, like I was told my whole life that I should feel grateful that I was born into my parent. Like, you should be grateful. Mom and dad work hard for you. You should be, so, and I know the whole you should be grateful is a totally different story in the adoption space, but there is an element of kind of old school sometimes you need to just step up, and even if you don't want to. So we're not going to force them. I'm not going to pull them by their arm.
Right.
And I may say, to Katie's point, okay, I see you're in the middle of a game, or I see it's a busy weekend. When would be a good time, do you think, for you to call Grandpa because it's his birthday? You know, like it needs to come in somewhere on the schedule. So to give them a little control. But I know we're talking about Mother's Day and birth families and all the sides of the triad, but I think it also works in, you know,
but that's one of those times, right? We
It's
have
another
to call
time.
and wish them and acknowledge them. Allison, what's a piece of advice you'd offer to someone aspiring to be a mom through adoption, a hopeful adoptive parent?
Oh my gosh, one piece of advice.
Just one. We don't have all day. We have a hard stop.
So first, you're doing the right things by listening to a podcast around adoption.
Amen. Okay, thank you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. And by the way, Rebecca, you made a top list on American Adoption's blog for top podcasts. I'll send you the link after this.
Thank you.
If anyone's listening, check it out. So I would say the biggest thing is education, right? So know what you're getting into, know current positive adoption language. It changes all the time. Understand where adoption has progressed from. Know that if you are not directly adopted or were a birth mom before, that very likely what you know about adoption is very ancient. Just because we as society have not yet gotten there, right? So marketing did an amazing job back in the 50s and 60s to make adoption look a certain way. And the society has not been able to get past it. And so we all, the four of us have obviously been working together to do education on that. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just listen, get educated, listen to the triad, the full constellation, right? So that's like caseworkers, that's, foster parents, all of that. And the more that you can listen and learn, the more that you will understand and be open to things, right? So like I could have sat here and focused on open adoption. It's very important. It's important to kid, but the more you just read up and learn about it, I mean, it's tough to even find a place that'll even do a closed adoption anymore, right? Because they know it's so beneficial for the adoptee. So that's what I would say. Talk to lots of folks. If you're talking to folks that are, steering you in one direction, right? No, you shouldn't do it. Talk to some other folks that are yes, you should, and just get all of the perspectives so that, kind of what Katy was talking about before, so you can make your own decision. So I always say I am an open adoption advocate. I'm not an adoption advocate. So I would not tell people you should adopt. I would say you make the decision on your own once you learn enough about this. So I'm in the same boat with Katy, just giving them the information to make that decision.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to get into something juicy right now. Adoption narratives are often sugar-coated, right?
Yes.
What are some of the off-limit, and I say that in quotation, the off-limits topics about adoption and about motherhood, and maybe about both at the same time, since that's what we're talking about, that you believe deserve a more honest conversation? Who is dying to jump in first? What do we need to become more honest about? And I would say I said one earlier, which is that Mother's Day is lonely for me as a single mom because my child doesn't really give two shits about it. Right.
Yeah.
I guess what really if I could just jump in, what comes to mind is that be careful on what your expectations are, and that others' expectations may be very different. So get that clarity, right? So if I'm talking about my adoption lived experience of over 30 years, because I have 5 nieces and nephews who often also came into our family through adoption, I have a very different perspective on adoption. It was a very positive experience when I say around adoption, right? But it doesn't mean there weren't many challenges on our journeys, and that life, you're not excused from life situations when you have adoption in your story, even though there may not have been a traumatic event other than the trauma around that, a child, the choice of being, placed for adoption and having to live and accept and come to peace with that, right? There's going to be so many different other life experiences that happen. So when somebody wants to talk about adoption, just understand where they're coming from when they talk about that experience, because the expectations of, some people jump right into, like when I was raising my kids, they always start with, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know." They would start with this apology. And I never quite got that. I'm like, there's nothing to be sorry about. Their birth mom chose life. They were actively engaged with my husband and I and chose us. They invited me into the delivery room.
Do you also get the thank yous? I find that really taboo and weird too.
They're so lucky.
Oh, thank you for adopting.
Right. And they're so lucky. And I always flipped it quickly. And I said, I'm the lucky one. There always seemed to be this, to make it into this
saviorism.
And this is so spectacular. Life is spectacular. Families are spectacular, adoption or otherwise. It's, so my work that if I could, is just to help send the message that our family stories are more alike than different, whether you have adoption in your story or not. And can we do away with some of these automatic comments that we say, and people don't mean it, right? It's coming from a place of, so that's something I talk about all the time, and why I'm doing this workshop in November with the hopes that we could just get more modern adoption stories out there. So we don't have those awkward pregnant pauses and then just saying awkward things,
Yeah. Thanks.
I agree. I've got some taboo adoptee ones.
Okay, great.
So there's a few. So obviously there are many, many different lived experiences, right? And I happen to have had a positive experience, right? Growing up as an adoptee. So I would say one thing is, just because you know one adoptee that had a good experience, that doesn't mean you should shut off listening to an adoptee that did not, right? So that it happens all the time. I even see it on the internet. People will tag me on something and I'm like, I agree that this is this person's experience and how they feel. You don't need to tag me. Just because I did not have that experience,
almost like wanting to drive the point home to you. See, this is not everyone.
No, they're doing the opposite. They're trying to say to that person that is struggling, I know an adoptee that's not having a problem at kids' books and also I'm like, oh, okay. And then I have to stand up for that adoptee. So I would say, understand that everybody has different experiences. Just like if you look at all the kids you took the bus with, going to school, they all had different experiences with different parents. Another phrase, again, I'm sticking with the adoptee side, just since Francine talked from the adoptive parent side. From the adoptee side, the other one is a better life. It's a different life. It's not a better life. No one is guaranteed a better life. I know that some people associate better life with money, and they think because adoptive parents have certain criteria they have to meet, right, to be considered a stable home, to pass a home study, they feel like that means that, but you could still be raised by a family that does not have very much money and be adopted, and money does not mean better life. There's all these things. So I would say those are some of the biggest taboo things, is assuming everyone had a positive experience just because one or two adoptees that did. And then, and then the other one just being the better life versus different life.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Katy?
I think the biggest thing is to bring up how many birth mothers are disappointed after adoption. Probably in the first 2-3 years, how things change and adoptive parents pull back for, I don't know, many different reasons. I don't know if it's just miscommunication or hurt feelings. It's not usually because the birth mother has gone off the deep end, although those experiences do exist, you know. But the birth mothers that I've talked to don't all have the experience I have, don't have that connection. Like both of you are sharing, all three of you are sharing how you make sure those video chats, you know, are happening. You know, Fran's at that other perspective, but she is, you know, having more now in person, right? That you did not have before, which is beautiful. I happen to know 2 of Fran's children's birth moms, and it's beautiful to see it happen. I'm honored to be a fly on the wall and not maybe that taboo thing is like a lot of people think, oh, it's so great that you allow your children to still have contact with their birth mom and their birth family. Like Jess gets that all the time. And it's like, you know, like you said, it's archaic the way society still thinks of adoption. It's no longer like that. It's like, I chose them. And I don't think they realize, like, I chose Jess and Elias for my twins. And I wouldn't have agreed to adoption if openness wasn't a part of it. Like, that was one of my deal breakers. It had to be open. I don't know if people realize that birth families still love their children. Birth mothers, birth fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, even friends of mine that walked me through, you know, that time. Like, even friends I meet now, they're like, oh, I can't wait to meet your kids. Like, they're very accepting. So maybe take that taboo thing that all birth mothers are, you know, drug addicts, not able to parent. I mean, I was fully able to parent. And most of them are able to parent. It might not be the best situation.
I love it. What lessons have you learned about navigating open adoption, and have those experiences shaped your views on motherhood?
Are we going in order?
What you can start.
Yeah. You know, again, I think I didn't have a traditional open adoption like I think open adoption is considered today, just because of the ages of our kids. So I felt it was important to do the pictures and letters to the attorney, and that's what was appropriate for our first son's story. And so that's, you know, going through the second time and the third time, I offered that, and they said, that's fantastic. And we just really agreed. They knew with all my heart that my children would know who they are, and that they had a special book that they were able to keep in their room with pictures of their birth family, whatever I had. And that someday, I always worded it, when it's good for you, it's good for our family, and it's good for your birth mom, you will all meet each other, right? But those things have to come into play. And I worded that in such a way over their years that was age appropriate for them to understand. So if you wake up one day, I'm 10 years old, and today's the day I want to go, you know, meet my birth mom. Well, it doesn't quite go that way, right? There's some things we need to do. So, and then there were people that said, no, you wait until they're 18. And I didn't agree with that. So long story short is 2 of my kids were 15 and 16 when they met their birth moms in person, but they had seen pictures all these years. And quite honestly, and I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way, but it was really kind of anticlimactic because they knew so much about them. They had already seen pictures of them. It wasn't this like meeting, like it was beautiful. And it was something that I so looked forward to because I just wanted them to have that experience. And I was so grateful to be by their side. But it was just felt so natural. And it just felt like this is the way it should be, right? that nobody's against each other. So if I could change one stigma, no, we're not against each other. We're together, and we're all just doing the best that we can at the time we're in our journey. So did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I would agree to that, kind of add on to it. From the adoptive parent side, I think that, growing up from a closed adoption, open adoption is so important to us. And in fact, our birth mom selected us because I'm adopted. And I think you guys know my husband is partially adopted, right? So his father met his mom when she was pregnant and single, right? And so then he adopted him at 1 year old. So he also, we both understand adoption, and we love their family. They're part of our family. They're just an extension of our family. And if it was up to me, we would live down the street, but we were also selected because we live several states away. So what I have to watch is just having a normal, healthy relationship that's not like over the top. So that's where I have to more ride the line. But yeah, that's the thought on openness. I would say with the I'll just say a closed thing because of being an adoptee from a closed adoption. I think that all of us should be advocates for adult adoptees. In your particular state, look up the laws. Do adult adoptees have access to find out get their original birth certificate with original names? If they don't, please help to push for that. Everyone should know where they came from. Everyone should be able to know medical history. These are basic human rights that we need to get to that point. So that's the piece. The last little plug I'll say as an adoptee, we've done a great job with openness for, kids from like the last decade or so, right, as they're being born and going through adoption. But we need to also be respectful of adoptees that have been adopted in the past when it was closed adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the one thing I would say about openness and how it shaped my views on motherhood is that open adoption, motherhood and parenting are two different things. Can be two different things. And I'll leave it at that. Katy, how important is community support in your journey as a mom, and what are some ways you actively build and maintain a support network?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I love Allison, the open birth certificates as well. New York just passed that in the last 5 years. And I think it's a game changer. That right there is support from community saying, we recognize that you have the right to know the truth of your life, right? The community support, Fran is a big part of in my area because we live in the same area. She's constantly inviting me to things as well. And I run a support group called Giving More Through Adoption for birth parents. And then we do get together with anyone touched by adoption. Adoptees have come to the retreat, or they've even spoken at the retreat. We've had adoptive mothers that have other businesses who have come in. This one woman, she's an organizer and she's an adoptive mom, and Fran's come and spoke as well. Community support is, I don't know, is as big as other birth mothers. Like being in a room with another woman who has chosen to break her own heart, where you don't have to explain. And that might be the same for those that are adoptive mothers. Like, it's like, yeah, we get it. We look at the face of a child that doesn't look like us every day, and we love them. And that doesn't matter. And some people can't understand it. They'll say stupid things like, oh, I could never do that. I could never place my child, or I could never adopt another person that's not my DNA. Like, I think they need some community support to be told, like, don't say these things. Like, where are you coming from with these things?
I love it. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said walking into a room where you don't have to explain yourself. That's what community is, and that's why it's so important. Ladies, moms, I want to honor each of you on this Mother's Day and every Mother's Day. And I'm going to do a very quick fire round. Allison, what does self-care look like for you?
Ooh, self-care. It has changed over the years. So if you had asked me a couple years ago, I would have said a pedicure. Now I would say meditation and mindfulness.
Awesome. Francine, what's a Mother's Day gift that never goes out of style for you?
Oh, no, I had an answer to her question.
Oh, but this is quick fire.
Handwritten notes.
Oh, love that.
It can even be on a piece of paper folded in with colored marker. But a handwritten note from my sons.
Oh, Katy, if you could have coffee with any inspirational mom, real or fictional, who would it be and why?
Oh,
Rebecca.
I mean, it definitely will go spiritual. Maybe Jesus' mother. Like, how do your parent the most
Mary?
perfect person?
We're going right for Mary.
Going for Mary.
Right? I'm going for Mary. Like, if you needed to be the perfect mother, God chose her.
Okay.
You know what? That would be a good conversation.
Oh my God, I love this. We are going to describe motherhood in 3 words, and each of you only get 1 word. Who's starting? Francine.
Love.
Allison.
Sacrifice.
Long suffering.
Adoption is not just a destination. It's a journey filled with love, resilience, and growth. Wherever you are on this roadmap, trust in your path, stay open to learning, and always lead with your heart. You already have everything you need to create a beautiful story for your family. And when the road takes unexpected detours, I'm here to help you navigate every turn along the adoption roadmap. Ladies, happy Mother's Day. Thank you so much for being here on this special edition of the Adoption Roadmap podcast. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Happy Mother's Day.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Adoption Roadmap podcast. If you did, I have a few favors to ask of you. First, please hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, I'd love to hear your takeaways. Please write a review and let me know what you liked. And if you have a question or a suggestion on what you'd like to hear, I'd love to hear that too. Please shoot me an email at support@rgadoptionconsulting.com and let me know what you'd like to hear about. And if you have a question, I may just answer it online. Thanks again for listening. Tune in every Wednesday and Friday morning for a brand new episode of the Adoption Roadmap podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.